Okay. Namaskar to everybody for making it this early in the morning. I think the creative community, as we all know, wakes up at 12 and gets to work. I don't know. That's what I feel. Because the 2 a.m. that he was talking about, when you suddenly get an idea and then you want to work till 9 a.m. So I think creatives are notoriously known for, but all of you made the effort, and I'm so glad that we are here. And a little bit about how I'm here is because the lovely Geet is a fellow sadhak. So people who don't know what a sadhak is, we are just meditators, and we are following a certain path to consciousness. And of course, some of this story that I'm going to share with you has a lot about how consciousness and mindfulness has helped us come here. Um, so I thought that was a 7-minute video that was supposed to play. So I quickly ducked out and I came back and it was already, no, I'm just kidding about that. So basically, I am one of the founders of this fashion firm called AMPM. We have a brand. It's about 23 years old now. And it was started by my sister. She's the creative director. Her name is Priyanka Modi. It started in 2002. So I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but I'll keep track. But what I wanted to actually start with is a conversation that I was recently having with somebody in America. And she's an American woman, and of course I'll introduce her at the end of this story because it kind of culminates in a way, and that's where we are right now. But I was just having this conversation with her, and she's really up there in the luxury world. And one of the things she told me, and it kind of just took me by surprise, like I hadn't consciously thought of it. So she said, there isn't a global brand from India. And I was like, how is that even possible? Like, we have some of the richest people in the world, and we have some of the biggest companies in the world, but we don't have a global brand. So I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, there isn't a brand that is known by an average American or a European or a Japanese person that has emanated out of India. And, I didn't believe her. So the moment she left, I actually chat GPT'd. Like we do everything these days, right? So I just went on to chat GPT. I gave it all the possible prompts that I could think of. And even in the morning before I came here, because this was like a conversation I had maybe 6 months back, and I was like, is it still true? So I literally wanted to be sure before I tell you guys, and what it gave me 6 months ago, it's given me today, that we actually truly don't. So some people will say Tata, it's not global. The average American doesn't know Tata. The average American doesn't know Reliance. They know Anant Ambani's wedding. They definitely put us on the map. So if there's a brand that an Indian brand that probably is now kind of global, is the Ambanis. So, but that's a family. And then there is, of course, Infosys, and there are so many of these companies, but these are all B2B companies and not exactly B2C, and not really a consumer brand for sure. So that actually struck me, and I think that's where the story is becoming interesting now, because AMPM is a small fashion company that we have, and we started in 2002. How it started was my sister, one-man army. Anybody who would know her or would come to know her, that she literally is a one-man army. Like she can work 24/7, and she expects me, her younger brother, and her husband, and everybody who's involved with it, we have to work 24/7, which we don't. And the only one who can sort of rebel against her is me, because I'm the brother, right? So her husband just sort of just steps back, and she's like, you know what, why don't you take the fire and deal with her. But truly, she's one of the most creative people I've met, not because she's my sister, just that's how it is. I've been in the fashion industry for 18 years now, and I've had friends from the smallest designers, and one of my closest friends was Rohit Bals. He's one of the top designers we had. So I spent a lot of time working with all of them, and so I understand potential, and I understand talent, and I understand how somebody's become who they've become on the basis of what. So we started, she started actually with one tailor in a office. She tells me because I didn't even see it. I was in school when she started, and I don't think I ever visited her first office. So she started with one tailor in an office where I think the ceiling height was such that if you couldn't stand fully properly. So 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 that's where we started, and then of course very quickly I think her product did really really well. So she came out with 10 pieces, and her mother-in-law was already a well-known designer, so it kind of became like a fashion family. Her mother-in-law is Anju Modi. She got married to her son Ankur Modi. So Anju Modi, for people who don't know, is a is like quite a legend, I think, in fashion. And no, I mean, I don't have to be. She needs to be maybe. So she, for the lack of understanding, she's won everything from every film award from Filmfare to you name it, because she did two films with Sanjay Leela Bhansali, Ram Leela and Bajirao Mastani. So everything that you see in them, it's all done by her. So she, of course, was not that famous back then, but she did over the years became bigger and bigger. But when Priyanka started, of course, she wanted to start her own thing. She had a very clear understanding of the kind of product that she wanted to do, which was a Preth product and not the saris and lehengas that say Anju Modi was doing. So she kind of requested, or she got married into the family, worked with her for 6 months, didn't think that was her jam, and moved on to open her own brand. And so she started small. She made a 10-piece collection which hung in Anju Modi's store, and I think it sold out in 2 days. So that's how it started. Very quickly grew into a commercial success. 5 years down, my sister is not here talking about this brand on her own because she is petrified of speaking. She doesn't like the media. She has to prepare for days before she can speak anywhere. So for her, it's mental torture. Like it's torturous for her to speak in front of people or to the media. And it's great because as a person who now has the responsibility for the brand and PR, doesn't have a face so, of a fashion brand. So it's an amazing job I signed up for. I joined 5 years after she started. So basically, her husband joined just pretty much 2 months into her starting the label. And that's how the label came to be. So AM is Ankur Modi and PM is Priyanka Modi. So it used to be AMPM by Ankur and Priyanka Modi, a very long brand name, which we, of course, I'll come to why we shortened it and how we shortened it. I joined 5 years down in 2007. I was 23, very old now. And I had no background in fashion at all. I just was this crazy kid out of college. My sister thought I was good for nothing, and so she gave me a job. I didn't want to work with my father because he was doing some very boring businesses. So, some trading and some manufacturing of yarn and God alone knows what all. And I was like, okay, this is just, I'm not cut for this. So basically we ended up working together. She offered me something, and somebody was talking about paying bills and how this job I took for not paying bills. So when I raised that thing, I actually meant it because I'd come out of London School of Economics, and I could have gotten a better paying job, but I got one with my sister. She paid me 15,000 rupees, which was less than my pocket money. And for years on end, I was living in Delhi. Thankfully, my father had some money, so I was living off him. And I think 3 years down, he one day just called me and he said, "You do get a salary, right?" And I said, because every time I would call him like, "Okay, I need this, I need that," and he's like, "You do get a salary?" And I said, "I do, I think." And he was like, "How much is it?" And I said, "It's still 15K." He's like, "You've not asked for a raise?" I said, "I forgot about asking for a raise because it just didn't matter to me. Yeah, the other thing is that, because these were two home companies, right? So I started, like I said, I knew nothing about fashion, right? So I started working with AMPM. and Anju Modi simultaneously. And neither of them had a marketing department or a brand department or a PR department. So it was basically me. I'm also a one-man army when I started. And it was basically me, and I was working with both these firms. 6 months down, Anju Modi, who I lovingly call Ma, so she said that I'm not paying the 7,500 that he's that I'm supposed to be paying out of his 15,000. So it was 15,000 divided into two firms, and she refused to pay 7,500 because that was my value. She refused to pay. But I loved Anju Modi and I loved the brand, so just continued to work. My brother-in-law, very sweetly, he said, I'm married into this family, I cannot not pay him. So he continued to pay my salary from AMPM, but I worked with Anju Modi, I think a little bit more during that time. So of course, that brand became what it became in those years. In a very short span, we went from a little bit obscure, so we were kind of known mostly in the Marwadi circles, but then it became quite a national brand, and of course, like I said, all those awards and movies, etc. But with the MPM is that where the interesting story lies. So 2007 is when I joined. 2009 is the first time we did a fashion show. So like I said, my sister is deathly scared. When I'm saying deathly scared, I literally mean deathly scared of putting herself out there. That also means putting her product out there in a show. So a fashion show is difficult for her because it requires, she needs things to be perfect, needed things to be perfect. She needed things to go a certain way, the media to react a certain way, the audience to react. So she wanted to control everything. And fashion shows, if anybody's attended one or done one, you will realize that nothing is in control. Till the last second, till the model walks out, till the show ends, the showstopper has walked, nothing is in control. So it's a chaotic business. And back in the day, it was even more chaotic because we were disorganized as a industry. So it was torturous for her, but I, being the younger brother, and I said, okay, guys, I've joined this company, but it cannot be a suit shop. Like, it has to be a fashion firm, right? Like, all the glamour I'd thought of, and I was like, okay, this is fashion, and we'll have so much fun, and you only join for the glamour. I mean, come on, who's in their right mind is going to join fashion for the money? Nobody, right? There's no money to be made. Like I told you, 15,000, nobody wanted to pay me that. So, so of course, she under pressure did the show, the first show, and then we of course continued doing a few shows every year for the next few years. But what happened was that with AMPM, we very quickly, like I told you, on day one, we found commercial success. And a few years later, we of course also found critical success, which was all the magazines writing about us, we appearing on magazine covers, superstars wearing us, models, supermodels wearing us, all of that. Some of the best shows, best reviews, all of that's happened. But we also grew and expanded because, you know, I had a certain ambition that we must grow in scale and size. Priyanka, on the other hand, didn't have that particular ambition. She did want to grow, but she wanted to grow in a certain way. Now that's where the misalignment began. So, say for example, I'm the brand, she's the creative, there's a misalignment already, right? Now that, when you're a smaller firm, those fault lines are thinner. When you start becoming slightly bigger, those fault lines start showing up very, very clearly and a lot more. So, because we didn't set any guardrails, a proper vision document, a mood board, not even a mission document really, she just started, right? Like, she was a creative person who had a lot of talent. She knows clothes, she knows quality, she knows design. That's what she started with. And she had a concept in mind, but I don't think she could articulate it well. Again, a reason why she doesn't want to interview or speak anywhere. But I, on the other hand, I think just ended up filling that gap with my own vision, which she didn't subscribe to. I subscribed to, but I didn't have a vision of hers, so it was like a whole sort of chaotic thing. And then there was my brother-in-law, who was just trying to steer clear of these two crazy siblings at war all the time. So this is three co-founder company, totally going nuts. Then the worst happened is basically I got the reins to the sales. So somebody made us realize that we don't have anybody who owns the sales in a fashion company. So I used to do PR and branding, and Priyanka was the creative, and Ankur was doing all the back end production and all that. But we all own sales, which meant nobody owned sales. So somebody pointed that out, and of course I was the Vela in the company. So they said, "Abhi bhai, tum sales dekh lo." Right? So and of course I had my own crazy ambition. So I kind of started fulfilling that by opening stores. And like I said, we were a commercially viable product, which did well. So we just kept expanding. And in a very short 5 year period, we went from, I think, one store to 15 stores in 7 cities. And all of them profitable. So don't get me wrong. This was still a very profitable company. But now, like I said, the size increased, and so the fault lines increased further. Because with every store that opened, Priyanka became unhappier and unhappier. Not happier, she became unhappier because in her head, AMPM needed to look a certain way, feel a certain way, the experience needed to be a certain way. She had envisioned it to be something else, and we were making it something else. Now, to sustain these 15 stores, we had to make a product which wasn't exactly the true AMPM product. It was a compromise between aesthetics and commercial viability. 15 stores, rents have to be paid, people have to be paid, production has to be paid, cash flow has to be there, right? So all of that. So very quickly we realized that okay, this might have not worked in the way that we wanted. And I think Priyanka became, she got to the point where she was like, okay, you know what? Shut it down. I'd rather shut it down. Like I'd rather not make this product. I'd rather not run this company. It was a, I know it sounds crazy, right? Like a profitable company, great brand. You're the third fashion brand apart from Anita Dongre and Ritu Kumar, who had major investments. We were privately held at that time, who had so many stores in the country, who were present in so many cities, right? So I know it's all sounds ridiculous, but AMPM's been that, and AMPM's been a very quiet brand, but it's got its own sort of advantages to that. So it was crazy for her to even suggest that. So me and Ankur were just like, we were like, okay, what are we going to do without her? If she doesn't want to do this, then what are we going to do? So of course, then the conversation turned to what do you want, and can you be clearer about this? Now the problem was she couldn't at that time, and so it sort of kept circling in that cesspool where we wanted to understand what she wants, and she couldn't really articulate what she wanted. As the universe sometimes conspires, um, we suddenly had two mentors show up. It's a long story, so I'm just going to cut it short. And you cut my time short. They told me half an hour, so I prepared a half an hour speech, and then she cut it. 20. When I got the calendar, I was like, "It's 20 minutes now. What am I going to say?" No, I'm kidding. So I think they'll get bored. So I'm just going to fasten this up. But I had two mentors. We had two mentors show up. I think it was Priyanka's will to somehow get out of this situation that she was in. And I think, like I said, the universe manifested for her, and we found two mentors who are very much a part of our lives, four people at least that I can see sitting right here. And they magically agreed to, because they have this program called conscious entrepreneurship. And so it's a program. So you go and you learn and you implement that in your lives. But sometimes some people are a little more blessed. So they agreed to take our business on as a consultancy. So they kind of started consulting us a little bit. Not a little bit, like fully. And that's when the entire journey changed, because this conscious entrepreneurship, everybody might be wondering what that is. Um, it's not just two words put together, right? It's really not. Entrepreneurship we all understand in a way, and there is a very surfacical understanding of entrepreneurship, which is कि business चला रहे हैं, है ना? कि हम business चलाएंगे, profit कमाएंगे, घर चलाएंगे. That's entrepreneurship. But conscious entrepreneurship is something a lot more profound. Conscious entrepreneurship is truly understanding the role of a founder. And everybody teaches sales, they teach marketing, they teach PR, they teach HR, they teach everything, finance, everything you can learn. But do you know of any course or program where you are taught about the role of a founder? Where the dharma of a founder, I mean, it's not a religious thing to say dharma. Dharma is a word that comes from our ancient wisdom. And this land, the land of dharma, um, but there is a dharma of a founder. How many of us actually truly know that? And how many of us have formally been taught that? Anybody? Any hands up? Right? So, this conscious entrepreneurship program, actually, the foundation of that is first and foremost to learn what truly an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur means. It's not just about making money, it's not just about scaling up, it's not about running a rat race, it's not even actually having a desire. it's, it's, a, it's fully the opposite of what you've been taught. So, there were so many times when I was like, why were we doing this? Like we were just going against the grain and struggling and struggling and struggling. Of course, it comes with sadhana. So when you're walking the path of consciousness, there's a piece that they, like a secret sauce, कि आप एक रेस्टोरेंट में जा रहे हो, बार बार जा रहे हो, आपको पता है कि कुछ तो ये डाल रहे हैं जो मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि क्या डाल रहे हैं, राइट? सो मेनी ऑफ यू आर गुड कुक्स एंड शेफ्स, आई एम श्योर, इन द रूम, एंड जिनकी मदर्स ने आपको उतना तो सिखा दिया होगा, मेरे को तो आज तक समझ में नहीं आया, बट इतना सिखा दिया होगा कि भाई इसमें हींग डलती है, इसमें ये डलता है ना, कुछ एक चीज़ जो वो डालती हैं जो किसी और को नहीं पता, राइट? तो ये लोग वो डालते हैं, ये लोग एक साधना डाल देते हैं जो किसी को भी नहीं पता और किसी को समझ में नहीं आएगा कि एक एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप कोर्स में साधना का क्या काम, बट है और था. So they put that for us also. And I don't know, again, as luck would have it, we just took to it like fish to water. And we just were like, okay, this is it. Like, we'll just do whatever you tell us. Because at that point, it was either shutting the company down or giving it your everything. It was just two choices left for us. We chose the latter. We chose giving it our everything. And we were like, ab aap jo bol rahoge, we'll see, right? We'll do. So they, I don't know how, but they kind of took us on that path where they were not telling us everything, but they were making us realize everything. So it was a path of realization. Ki acha, we realized ki what our role was supposed to be and what we were actually doing or not doing. Who we want to be, but we are not being. Who we want to become, but we don't even know that. And how to dream, but not get stuck with the dream. So many people just dream. Like I was having this conversation today with this lovely gentleman here, and I was telling, so he wants to become an actor, and so anybody who can help him with that. But I was just having that conversation, and he told me, and I have many, many friends in fashion who've been models and who wanted to become actors, who I have seen not make it. So they're my age now, like 35 plus. He's of course very young. But one of my suggestions over the years, once I started walking the path of consciousness, was that give yourself time, but like limit yourself. So point being, don't get so attached to a dream that you completely destroy everything else around you, right? People, if you see, there are so many people who come all the way from wherever they are to Bombay to pursue this lovely dream, and then they forget that they have a family back home. They have not, I'm not, but as a community, right? They have a family back home, they have responsibilities back home. They are only getting money from their family because it's not easy to survive in Bombay, and they don't send anything back. So, it's after a point it becomes unconsciousness, right? It's conscious enough when you have time, you have bandwidth, you have opportunity, you're young, you want to pursue your dream 100%. But there's a conscious element to it, and which turns into unconsciousness if you pursue it for too long. Now, a 38-year-old who has no career in the industry and who has no career otherwise and has a family back home, is that conscious? For him to have made no money, no prospects, not married, had no kids, no family to support, so we understand that point. So we walked this path with them, and very quickly we realized that we've been doing a few things wrong. So one of the things that we realized that we were doing wrong was that we wanted to be a luxury brand, but we were behaving like a not non-luxury brand. We didn't understand our own value. So our mentors actually got another Sadhak who had also just joined. He's an Harvard graduate, IIT, and he did it for free. So just because our mentors said, so they said that why don't you go and see what the problem with the business is. He took a month. He came. He understood. He just spent his own time. We didn't pay him. We obviously doubted him. Like, who the hell is this guy? He's from IIT and Howard. Like, what will he know about fashion? Anyway, we went along with this madness. And a month later, he said, okay, fine. I've understood what you guys are saying. I will now do my own thing and I'll come back to you in a month. He came back to us in a month and he told us that basically your problem is that you're a luxury brand which is not behaving like luxury. So we were like, what? And then the more he explained it, we had those realizations and we were like, okay, that's true. And so that opened our eyes a little bit. And then actually, truly, that was a stepping stone to so many realizations that we had. And so we realized that, okay, we need to do a lot. We need to change a lot about ourselves. And then the more we thought about it, the more we wanted to change, the more we change, when I'm saying elevate what we had. Sorry. Right. So basically, like I told you about the product, for example, right? That there was a compromise in the product. What happened was that what we used to say is that we want to be a global fashion brand. But what we were making is only product which was centric to India. We were not even attempting to go outside of the country and look for an audience, right? Then, whether it was our store experience, right? At the store, we were just operating like a store. And I'll tell you the difference if you visit one of our stores now versus what it was back then. So I'll actually add that into the story. So if you give me just 2 minutes, I'm just coming to that point, right? So basically, we were behaving, like he said, behaving not like a luxury brand and wanting to be a luxury brand. So, or rather, we were a luxury brand. So basically, he realized that the amount of uh, effort that we were putting in just creating the product was unbelievable. He said, I have seen so many businesses and I've never seen so much process into creating one product, which you are then selling at an X price, which you should be selling into X into 3. Price is not luxury, but he was just saying for the effort, for the time, for the talent that you guys are putting in, for the vision that you guys want to have, at least correct certain things. अब आप एक Mercedes को जाके अगर 10 लाख में बेच दोगे तो उसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. The customer will have no value of that, right? So that's where the discrepancies were, and all of that we corrected over time. Of course, we started walking this path, and so the journey had been inward. And when the journey was inward, what happened with Priyanka and I was that we finally ended up touching our core. So there's a core that Priyanka had. She is the genesis of AMPM. And she wasn't being able to touch it. She was being able to see it from afar, and she knew that, okay, what we are doing doesn't look like that, but she was not being able to touch it. Finally, she was able to touch that core, and from that core came fearlessness, came this thing that, okay, now it's everything or nothing. We realized, because we were very privately held, we are a Marwadi family. मारवाड़ीज़ को सिर्फ अपना धंधा चलाना होता है, खुद ओन करना होता है, हमें कुछ नहीं समझ में आता है. हमारे पेरेंट्स ने कभी भी कोई इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं लिया, वो कितने भी करोड़ की कंपनी चला रहे हों, बट देयर लाइक कि नहीं, वी भैया हम कम कमा लेंगे बट हमारा कमाएंगे, राइट? सो अ लॉट ऑफ दोस, नॉट एवरीबडी, बट नाउ ऑफ कोर्स थिंग्स आर चेंजिंग. So we were just doing that, we were going about our own business, but then we realized that, okay, we wanted to change a lot. Now at that point, just to give you context, we were at a turnover of about 35 odd crores, right? This is 2019, which in fashion standards is, I mean, it's a very small number otherwise, but like in fashion standards, it's a biggish number. But we were like, okay, we need a lot more to now change. I'm saying it controversial. the pandemic came like a silver lining for us. So we wanted to change so much about the company, but we had no time because you were running a full-time business. When the pandemic came in the lockdown, we got the silver opportunity of just sitting at home, having con calls online, and reimagining the entire brand. So when we started reimagining the brand, we realized that okay, we wanted to scrap everything and start completely afresh because we had gone so far away from where the core needed to be. And it was a scary thought. Imagine a 20-year-old brand now changing everything about itself. 20-year-old, 15 stores, 7 cities, profitable brand, wanting to change everything, including the name. So then we were like, okay, fine, you know what? If we're doing this, let's just go whole hog. And we said, okay, fine, even the name came up on the table. So we said, are we keeping AMPM or are we not keeping AMPM? So, like I said, AMPM by Ankur and Priyanka Modi used to be the brand. When we did the re-envisioning, we realized that to be a global brand, we cannot have a name this long. It just doesn't make sense. Also, another reason that came was that now, with our new vision, we wanted to build a company which was at least going to last 100 years. We wanted to build a company which had succession, like true succession, not a company where ये तीन लोग हैं जिस दिन वो टपक गए अब ये कंपनी बंद हो गई, right? So we very quickly realized कि हम अपने लिए मतलब अपने लिए कर रहे हैं मतलब in a way तो कर ही रहे हैं अपने लिए, but ये नहीं है कि हमारे साथ ही खत्म हो जाए. So all of this of course was the consciousness that we had been realizing and we had been sort of getting also from our mentors, etc. And so very quickly we were able to make decisions now because we had become clear about what our purpose was, what our intent was, and the purpose and intent had become aligned. अभी तक क्या हो रहा था कि पर्पस कुछ था बट इंटेंट कुछ था तो उसमें जो झोल हो रहा था तो इसमें पूरी कंपनी का और हमारा बैंड बज गया था. तो when these two things got aligned, when the conscious entrepreneurship actually came into play, then we realized, okay, one, we are wanting to build a platform so that people will come and the generations of people will come and they will take it forward. It's looking like this today. We have this vision. पर ये हमारा limited vision है. अब एक कंपनी को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए दूसरे लोग भी चाहिए, उनका vision भी आएगा and it will carry on. So then when we redid the entire piece, we actually took investment. We took investment because we had to shut 12 stores out of 15 stores and run the business on just 3 stores. We took that crazy decision. चलते चलते profitable stores को बंद करना. तो हमारा जब investor आया था, so he came in 2019. Over dinner we had a chat. This that again somebody that our mentor introduced us to, and we just had a chat. They loved the thing. It was a passion project for him. He had a lot of money. He cut the check. No paperwork, nothing. He cut the check. 2020 rolled around. He cut another check, and then we were like, okay, we need to rebrand. He thought very sweetly, rebrand means logo change कर रहे हैं, ठीक है? So as anybody, right? He's a finance guy. I mean, he's running a tech business. He thought logo change कर देंगे, एक coat paint कर देंगे stores में, और क्या मतलब थोड़ा बहुत furniture में भी. So when we told him कि we are shutting 90% of our stores or 85% of our stores, he was flabbergasted. He was like, what? What have you guys got me into, right? And we were like, no, please trust us, please. And we know now what we are doing, even if we didn't know what we were doing before, but we definitely know now what we're doing. And now we had no proof of concept. Like 20 years of proof of concept, we were dissing now. And we were saying, ये ठीक नहीं है. Because अब इसके बाद ये कंपनी नहीं बढ़ पाएगी. एंड जिस पे उसने पैसा लगाया था, दैट 20 ईयर प्रूफ ऑफ कॉन्सेप्ट पे उसने पैसा लगाया था. अब हम बोल रहे हैं कि नहीं, हमारा ना एक नया कॉन्सेप्ट है जिसमें हम आपके पैसे एक्चुअली यूज करेंगे, जिसका कोई कॉन्सेप्ट, जिसका कोई प्रूफ नहीं है, बट हम बोल रहे हैं कि आप हमें ट्रस्ट करो प्लीज. दैट गाय, आई हैव टू गिव इट टू हिम, ही स्टिल अ इन्वेस्टर, स्टिल इन्वेस्टिंग, न्यू राउंड ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट, इन्वेस्टिंग मोर मनी. He said, okay, he just went along, poor thing. And so this was 2020. We went into complete overhaul of the brand. It took a year and a half. Like we spoke, that nothing good comes quickly. So 20 years, we marked our 20 years by completely changing over. So something good came 20 years later. and it took a year and a half to do it. And we went to, and then of course everything was up for discussion. Name, this, that, the other. We worked with this lovely creative agency called Wyden and Kennedy. They're New York, I mean, their main office is in New York. They're the ones who actually launched Nike 40 years ago, and they have continued to be Nike's creative agency since then. Priyanka and I love a few brands that we think their communication is fabulous, the way that they speak and what they stand for. Nike was on top. Not a fashion brand; it's a sneaker brand. But we were like, doesn't matter. That's somebody to aspire towards. And then we love Indigo, the flight. But I mean, I know a lot of people hate Indigo, but we love the communication. We love how they branded themselves right from day one. Again, Wyden Kennedy. So in India, and so we're like, okay, we'll go with Wyden Kennedy, and they had an India office, so we went to them and we sort of had that conversation. All of these things were of course expensive, crazy. They were like, you're a fashion brand, tiny, tiny, tiny. But we were going to somebody who had worked with the Oberois and DLF and all of that. But it didn't matter. We hadn't gone to them because they were big. Really, we hadn't. We had found another firm. There were two people in contention. One firm much smaller in Bombay, but we finally went with them only because we wanted a certain minimalism and a certain heart which we thought that they can get us. Because we were clear at that point, so we chose the agency who we thought will align with us the best. The problem that you've been discussing and this whole thing is about is basically how brands are not clear. And when they're not clear, they'll go with anybody. And every firm, like even Twitchy Thoughts, will have its own essence. It's just the people who are in that firm at that time, right? And it'll keep changing over the years, but we knew that at that moment we needed them because we knew who we wanted to be, right? So it's a clarity that has to come from that afar. So we worked with them. Of course, they did a good job with us, but they gave us a deck, like all creative agencies. Hey, ये logo है, अच्छा, logo का कहानी. Sorry, and just cut me off, right? Whenever it's gotten too long. So there's a logo. They gave us 26 options to choose from. 26. Out of which 25 looked 3% here and there. And one looked completely different. We said we want this one. And they said, this is the one we can't let you choose. So we were like, why? And they were like, no, because this is not, like, it just won't work. And they whatever they listed, whatever their reasons were. But we were like, but this is the one we want. Like, this is the one we feel most instinctively close to. And so we actually fought them on that logo. And they were shocked. They were like, the creative agency is telling you not to take this logo and you're taking that logo. And so we took that logo, we tweaked it ourselves because we were a creative firm. We tweaked it a little bit ourselves. And now it works. And it works beautifully for us. We love it. We've never even regretted it for a second. Okay. That's the level of clarity we had come down to. Then we, of course, had to launch this, relaunch ourselves, right? Rebrand has to be launched. We were sitting in a meeting, I remember, a month from launch. So this we launched this new brand 2.0 version in October 21. And a month before, we had an entire marketing team in a room, and we were like, okay, how do we do this? And people were like, X, Y, Z. And of course, social media is a huge part, right? Instagram is a huge part of every fashion brand's marketing. And you're like, okay, how do we do this? And the old brand looked a certain way because now we had done a shoot and we've had this whole, like now everything's clear, right? Like what it's going to look like and how it's going to be. And so I think I was the one always with the crazy ideas. I said, just wipe the whole thing clean. Like we had, I don't know, 100,000 followers or whatever. And I said, just wipe everything clean. Just go blank. And for a week, and then we'll just start with the new. Because there's no way that we can carry 1.0 into 2.0. Like the whole exercise about shutting the stores, redoing the stores. was about completely changing face. And I said, this just, it took a minute, maybe less than a minute, and everybody was on board. Because now, with the clarity that we had over the last 1 year that we've been getting, and our team that had been working with us, we were all clear what we wanted. We were all clear that it's about this, it's not about the past. A 20-year-old brand completely wiping their past was kind of unheard of. But we did it. And we shut those 12 stores. We kept 3 stores, all in Delhi. Why we did that was so we keep the lights on. Two, that we thought that changing the experience of 3 stores will be much easier than changing the experience of 15 stores. So we thought that we'll change the experience and then we'll start opening stores. Again, it's a massive undertaking. I've built 30 stores in my life. Each store takes a little bit out of you, which you'll never get back. So anyway, we did that. The first store that we changed the experience of was at Emporio. I'm not sure how many Bombayites are aware of DLF Emporio. It's India's #1 luxury mall. Now beaten by Geo Plaza, if and when they actually complete it properly. So, so yeah, I've been hanging in the balance for a year and a half now. So we changed that store because we wanted to double the space. So the vision was now from 500, 600 square feet stores, we thought that we want to be a luxury brand. One, we want bigger stores. Two, like I was coming to you, so the answer now is that when you entered our store earlier, 500 square feet, every inch nearly covered by racks, clothing racks. Just you enter square store, cut, product. Of course, we tried merchandising it as beautifully as we could. We were very, very particular about it. People used to love the way that we used to merchandise, colorway wise, this wise, that wise. But it's a store. It's a transactional space. You get in, it's a store, you come, you shop, you leave. Now the entire brand had changed. Now we were talking about consciousness and we were talking about how we wanted experience and we wanted people to actually feel something. We wanted a space which would actually emote something. So whenever you guys have a minute, you can go on our Instagram and actually see our Instagram. If you ever are in Delhi, must come to one of our stores, especially if you're at Emporio, must come to Emporio. Um, and I really, really promise you'll feel something. Um, so we built this store how, basically. We doubled the space. Okay, we thankfully we were already at Emporio. We had 1,000 square feet. The store next door became available. We just took that. We had no clue how we'll sustain, right? Because you've been in a space for 8 years, so you know the numbers. You know कि हम अभी तक तो इतना ही कर रहे थे, and you make a little bit of a profit, and you're happy with that. But now you're doubling the space. Okay, it's a whole different undertaking. You're also completely changing the entire look and feel. The look and feel that Priyanka and I came up with was, so I remember we were in the first interior designer meeting. She's an interior designer, she'll know what this will mean. Um, so like I said, siblings, we are crazy, we fight a lot. But she wants me in everything, right? She wants my opinion in everything. So the first meeting, the interior, we were meeting at Priyanka's house, and Jessica had come, and she's the interior designer we worked with, and Priyanka, being as always over prepared for everything, had 100 mood boards. That okay, these are all the references that I can think of. Everything's printed. It's on a dining table. Blah blah blah. I saw all of that, and I was like, okay, I don't think I'm required. So I went and quietly slept on the sofa. And because I knew that had I given my opinion, it would have actually hampered with what her vision was. Because she would have used me like a crutch and wanted to, just to humor me, she would have taken something. But I wanted this to be as pure as possible, right? Now we are building something completely pure. We are only building this from the core. Nothing and no one should come in the way of that happening. So I said, you know what, best I just move aside. She's the creative and has the vision and she will figure it out. I woke up 2 hours later to a very disgruntled Priyanka because she was so upset that I slept in a meeting on the sofa. And I woke up and I was like, okay, great. Have you guys chosen? Like, have you narrowed down on something? Like, is there a mood that we are looking at? She's like, yeah, we have. No thanks to you. So I said, okay, fine. Can I see it? There was a board, and on the board there was a picture, and in the picture there was a blank wall, and that was the mood board. There was just a blank wall. So I had to ground my shock. I was like, what is this? Like, how do you, where do we go from here? Like, this is a blank wall, right? So, of course, what came after was I realized that, okay, there's sunlight in the store, and then there is a texture to the wall, and then all of that, but it's still a blank wall. Now, kudos to Jessica who took that and actually made this beautiful space, because what Priyanka wanted and what that told was that one, she wanted sunlight in any somehow. Then she wanted this sense of space. Sense of space is what actually true luxury is, right? And she wanted that, and this was her expression. She said, "Now you go from here. This is what I want." I remember having this conversation with DLF Emporio. It's a mall. They don't have any stores with sunlight. And I went to the management and I said, we're on the third floor. Is there a way we can break the roof and get some sunlight in? They looked at me and they're like, are you outside of your mind? Like, what is wrong with you? What is this request? I said, we need sunlight. So you tell me how we get sunlight, like which store gets sunlight. And they're like, there is no store in this entire mall which will get you sunlight. So you figure your shit and get out of our face, right? So anyway, we, as always, depended on our architect then. And then we were like, just figure out sunlight maybe. And so she did. Like, kudos to her, she did. She found a lighting guy and so now when we opened the store, the first day somebody walked in, it was 7 p.m. We had actually an event at the store, 50 people, 7 p.m., dark outside, it's November. He was like, how do you have sunlight? Because we actually went down to the detail of saying that we want not only sunlight, we want 11 a.m. sunlight. Yeah. And we calibrated the light. It's a Barrisol, and it's a light installation, and so we built the store in such a way that one, it became a discovery. So it's a 1,700 square foot store which has three sections. Now when you enter the store, actually there's no door. You just walk in. So a lot of people just walk in thinking this is one part of the mall. So it worked well for our footfall. So, but there's no door because we wanted it to be warm. We wanted it to be welcoming. So we actually didn't put any barrier at the door. Two, that we created not a rectangle. It is a rectangle, but we actually made a kind of a racetrack. These were ideas that we all said that, we want discovery. We want people to come in and actually keep experiencing the store more and more as they enter the store more and more. So now when they enter first into what we call, oh, we have new people. Hi. So what we call the lobby or the landing area, and that's where one part of the store is. Then we created a courtyard, which is where the sunlight is. And actually looks like a courtyard. So we actually did grid floors, and we did, this sunlight installation. We have plants, we have water. And then you move into a section called the lounge, which is like a home. It's like a lounge, and it's got this wardrobe, which actually was exactly a wardrobe that Priyanka's house used to have. So we just copied that. What we also did was that we had lovely stores around us. We had Ritu Kumar, we had Anita Dongre, we had Purnia's pop-up shop, all of them with their lovely Gota Patti lehengas shouting out of their windows. And our store was the most minimal. Our brand was like literally, मतलब हम एक embroidery भी करेंगे तो इतनी सी और इतने direction में और उसको ऐसे point करना होगा. So we didn't want any of that reflection coming into our store. So we actually stonewalled our store. So we just kept two show windows because it's a corner store, so one on one side, one on one side. And we said, okay, we don't want actually anybody to see, what this looks like. And so we just basically stonewalled it, right? So all of these crazy decision making, we doubled our store, halved our hanging. We used to hang 120 clothes. We now were hanging 60 clothes in a double the space, and tripled our sales. So basically, the whole point of this conversation is that you need to truly find your core. You need to be clear from that. You have to be fearless because there is something that you have which nobody has. What AMPM today, so earlier we used to think that, okay, we have competition, we have this, we have that. Frankly, today somebody asked us, we actually start asking, do we have competition? Like, can we tell some brands which are kind of similar to us? Because not out of any fake humility or anything. Truly, we don't know. Because and now that fear and that question has completely gone out of our teams also, because we are not working against anyone. We are just working for ourselves. We are working for our vision, for our brand, and the way that it works is only truly uniquely AMPM. So an AMPM store will look like an AMPM store. A lot of people actually have copied or tried to copy what we did at Emporio. Our store managers actually get very upset because they're like, कि customer से ज़्यादा architects आते हैं to just look at the store. But the fact is that those three stores um, did the same turnover that 15 stores used to do. And from 2022, we've had three stores. And we are now looking at one in Bombay. But the thing is that we've gone from 35 crores to 13 crores because we cut out all the stores. And from 13 crores in 2022 to 50 crores today. Um, and I'm just giving you perspective, right? Like you had to take a huge step back, but just to go faster forward, right? And it was all crazy, but it was a conscious decision which has now resulted in opening two markets. We had to go nowhere. There's a Middle Eastern influencer that came to Emporio, the Emporio store. She got so excited. She had 3 million followers. We had no idea that we could sell in the Middle East. She started putting our brand up online and people started buying. And then now today, 2 years later, 50% of our business comes from the Middle East. And very recently, the woman I was talking about, the American woman I was talking to, her name is Pauline Brown. She visited us in February. She came to India for the first time. She is ex-chairman of LVMH, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, for North America. So she came in and she went around Bombay and Delhi, and she got in touch with us somehow. And she said that we were the only brand that she thought that she wanted to take to America as a brand. And so we've done a 6-month project with her, because she has now a consultancy agency firm that works with smaller brands from around the world to take them global and take them to the US and European markets. So now the only essence of the story is a small brand that is dreaming to be a global brand only on the basis of it having walked the talk and it having walked this path of consciousness and mindfulness and eventually fearlessness and clarity. So it's easier said than done, but I really, really hope that all of you actually really sit with yourselves, walk inwards, not look at all the noise outside, because there will always be somebody telling you something. But that voice which you have is unique, and you should listen to that more and more. Your intuition, you should hone it more and more. Of course, all of you might know Geet, and so she will be very much available to tell you how you can do that and how you can enhance that. But this is my wish for all of you. So.